Our next speaker is Curtis Russell, who's a Senior Program Specialist with Public Health Ontario and its Ontario Lyme Disease Surveillance Program. Curtis?
Great. Thank you for having me. My presentation today is going to spill off a little bit from what Dr. Ogden did. I'm kind of giving you an update of what we do in Ontario. How do we look for ticks? How do we do human cases? Just what the Public Health Ontario program is. So, not that interesting. If I'm not sitting in a cubicle in downtown Toronto, I'm usually running around the woods looking for ticks, so I have nothing to declare for conflicts of interest. I have no commercial support, and nothing there as well. So what am I going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about overview what Public Health Ontario, or PHO, what do we do for our Lyme disease surveillance program. The areas that I will cover is human surveillance, tick surveillance, what do we do, how do we know where the numbers are, give a little bit of insight into our epidemiology in Ontario and some of the initiatives. What is PHO doing about Lyme disease in Ontario for our aspects of our mandate, what we cover. So what is it? What does PHO do? So we work closely with the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. So broad paintbrush, Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care is program and policy. Public Health Ontario is science, technical aspects. So we work a lot closely with other agencies and look on the science and technical aspects of that. So the things we have for that, to have that data to do the science and technical is to have the human data, have the tick data. We also work closely with the public and physicians for some education. Education-wise, our mandate is more to the physicians and public health units. That's our mandate, who we're supposed to educate and work with. But bearing in mind, because our stuff, we do have a public.
Just be mindful that as you turn to look to the slide,
right,
we lose your audio. Okay.
So the other thing to note, I'm getting really intimate with the mic there, people can't see.
And suddenly he turned into a yoga instructor.
I'm now stuck in this pose. So when we talk about public education, that's more, we do have a public-facing website, so we do know the public goes to that. However, our mandate more is to the health units and the healthcare providers, and then we do research, which I'll go into in the slides. So just for a bit of background on Ontario, I know each province has, health districts, health regions. In Ontario, we call them public health units. For short, we just say health units. Again, there's 36 of them, so each one of those has their own local medical officer health. They're different regions, as you can see by the map, very differentiations in size, habitat, biology, population. You have down in Toronto with millions of people, or you can have ones up in, say, northwestern Ontario where you're talking about tens of thousands of people, and people for different areas. Very different dynamics, which also is the case for a lot of your other provinces. Big thing that we do, a lot of the work we do really directly with the health units, and they're the feet on the ground. They're the ones that do a lot of the hard work. They're really great to work with, really passionate, but they're the ones that do a lot of the work. So all of them, they're the ones that do the tick surveillance. We will educate them how to do the tick surveillance, but they're the ones that actually can go out and do the tick dragging. They're also the ones that investigate the human cases. They're the ones, get reported, you get the lab work. They're the ones that go out and investigate the cases and look where they should put it into our provincial reporting system. They do their risk assessments. They look at what's happening within their area. They use their data, the data we provide them, and determine what they should do with their health unit. And they do that for all kinds of different pathogens, but they also do that for vector-borne diseases. And then based on that information, they will create local programs, and they also do their own local public and physician education. Role of Public Health Ontario, what do? We work with them. So we provide expert scientific consulting. So for a lot of the medical stuff, we have aspect of that. We have physicians within public health that we can help with. And then with the health units, we provide the science and technical expertise. So, how do you do tick surveillance? How do you tick drag? How do you get that really awesome outfit on and go out into the woods and look for ticks? When we're dealing with human cases, what should we do? We provide guidelines. Should you standardize your best practices? How should you conduct a standardized human case investigation? How do you do your tick dragging? We actually, even though the health units do a lot of the work for tick surveillance, we will actually go out with them sometimes as well and do that and provide some training. Again, we also supply with their risk assessments, and then we are also the public health lab. So all the lab samples that come into Ontario, they come into the Public Health Ontario laboratory. So we provide the tick identification. If it's identified, it goes off to the national lab. But we also do all the in-house testing. We do the testing in Ontario for all the Lyme disease possible cases. We also do research, so we take the data we have and we work with colleagues and try to produce some different things. So for example, one of the papers we just had out is just in Public and Press. One of our colleagues did this, is human pathogens. So we looked at what pathogens are associated with black-legged ticks. So we did a survey, a lit search, tried to see what's in the different pathogens and looked, what's happening within kind of a Ontario, North America setting. We did some population-based stuff, looked at the ticks, where are they occurring, where's the Borrelia, what's the prevalence in the different parts of the province based on the tick data we get. And then one of our other colleagues is looking at healthcare costs associated with Lyme disease. So it's a population-based study, but what are the costs to the system of people having Lyme disease and following them through? That's an ongoing study, but it's a very interesting work. So what do we do in Ontario? So we have different aspects of, Dr. Arden did this really well, so I won't get into the nitty-gritty of it, but, we have passive surveillance. So right now, if you have a tick on you, you can take it into your local health unit or to your local physician, and you can submit it off to us. So at our public health laboratory, we'll identify it. If it is a black-legged tick, it goes off to the national lab in Winnipeg, where they then will do their testing and confirm whether or not it has different pathogens in it. Also, we have our surveillance system. It's called IFAS, and we use that for all our reportable diseases. So if someone has Lyme disease, that's where we'll come into that, and that is reported into our system. So, if we have a human case with no travel history, they had to get bit by an infected tick, so that's also another way of saying that there's probably some ticks in a different area. And then the health units, they're the ones that do this. They look for the ticks, they monitor these human cases, so they get lab reports or reporting from physicians that they think someone has it. They can go out and investigate that case and determine whether it fits our case definition. Again, the active stuff, we actually go out and look. So same thing too, if we have passive data, humans, ticks, people complaining, telling us that there's something going on in the environment, we will actually go out and look for the ticks in the environment. So that, the ones that you've seen before, the tick dragging, small mammal trapping. Small mammal trapping, we usually do in collaboration with the National Microbiology Lab. They have the expertise, they have all the traps. So we'll do that with them. The tick dragging, more us and the local health units that we can do that. Again, it's a really high-tech equipment. It's another good use for duct tape. So what do we do with all that data? Going out, looking for the ticks, finding the ticks, getting that passive data, telling us it in, getting all those human cases. We're trying to use that information to tell us where there might be problem areas or where new things are expanding. So example, we produce annual reports. This one is showing from 2014 where we see local acquired cases, which kind of lines up to certain things. The colors look a little off, but you can see, wish I had a pointer, but you can see, St. Lawrence region, Kingston, Leeds, health units, they have large numbers of cases, and they're in where they're occurring within those certain areas. And this is based on the most likely exposure. Where do we think that person got it? So, I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but, where do people think they got it? Where's the exposure? And there's different levels of that as well. But again, this is where we're seeing them. And then we can try to look at that with our passive tick information. Does that line up? Is there areas where the ticks are coming in where we don't see humans? Is there humans coming from areas where we don't see ticks? And so this is the example again. So these are ticks based on the submitter's location of residence, so where they live, not acquisition. But again, you can see large numbers of ticks coming from the St. Lawrence down along the north shores of Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. Whereas you do note, we do get other ticks up in northern Ontario. If you're looking more around the northeastern ones, we think those are more the adventitious ticks, but we do note that, you can get these ticks due to the migratory birds almost anywhere in the province, but we still do seem to get somewhat focal areas. And we do have more kind of coming up around that northwestern Rainy River area, which is an area we have identified as a risk area. So this is one of the papers we showed where, we looked at, where are the ticks coming from? Where's the positivity rate? So again, this is both by exposure, but again, getting large numbers of ticks coming from that St. Lawrence area, down around Lake Erie a little bit, and then, we're getting that little bit up in the northwestern area. And the rate of positivity can quite variation, but you can see, where we're getting the large number of ticks, this also seems to be the areas where we're getting, higher positivity rate, which is usually explained because those areas have been established longer, more ticks there, that's where we usually get the higher positivity rates. Again, not to really get into detail with this map, but we also do get other species coming into the province that we do identify, and we do have a location of where people are, the residents of where they come in. So we do look at that just to see what are we getting, where are they coming from, is there anything associated with that? So, we can see where the black-legged ticks are. We see most of them coming from, the St. Lawrence area. American dog ticks, we get more, they're there as well, but we get them kind of across the whole bottom. Woodchuck ticks, we don't see a lot of those on people. We don't get large numbers of them, but where are they coming from? And again, the Lone Star tick, most of the ones we see, we get a very small number of them. And again, most of them are being, they're adventitious, they're being brought in. But we can look at numbers and see if there's any trends or is there something occurring that might raise alarms. Again, if you go to PLOS One and search Nelder, that's where this paper is. I know a couple people taking pictures. So PLOS One, Google the author Nelder, that's where this paper is. And then other things we do, all that good work that those health units do, and they do that tick dragging, and they do, they go out spring and fall, and they do find black-legged ticks, we can then use that to call risk areas. And again, because most of our mandate is to the health units and to the physicians, they can use this so when a health unit is doing a case investigation, because right now in our case investigation, it doesn't say do they have location to a risk area, but it also, to an endemic area or to a risk area. So, if someone falls within that, the health unit can use that to kind of classify for when they're looking for their cases, again, for provincial surveillance. And most of those areas are noted, where we're seeing those ticks come from in human cases. So as you know, the Rouge Valley is now one of our risk areas, which is along the eastern part of Toronto. So we do, based on the work that was done in Nova Scotia and through PHAC, we do put a 20-kilometer buffer around our known areas just to kind of give that buffer effect of where the ticks can maybe expand to. So same thing in Toronto. They weren't at the Raptors game last night, but, they could be, any of the wooded, brushy areas, there is a possibility of them being in those different habitats. So that's what we do with the buffers and try to get that. And we also say, we know right there on our disclaimer that, ticks can be in brushy, wooded areas. They can be in other parts of the province, but based on our surveillance, this is where we're seeing them now. And this also helps the health units that they can go and look, areas where they don't have a risk area yet, should they go out and look there to see if there's something occurring. And then from a public point of view, sometimes too, people say, there's no Lyme in Ontario. You can quickly show them this map and say, here's where the risk areas are, here's where it's occurring. Some new updates, some things we've done. We did a change to our case definition in 2015. The main thing we did there is, used to say, did you have a location of exposure to an endemic region? And endemic was that focal point. So were you at Long Point? Were you at Turkey Point? Were you at Thousand Islands National Park? Now we've gone to that risk area term, so now you look more at that map, and it can encompass more cases. So hopefully we'll find more cases that way. And the other thing we have to do is now is if you have an EM rash, if it's clinically confirmed and you kind of came from a risk area, that's indicative of a case now in our new case definition. Some other things we do, so those health units, so that they know how to do tick dragging, we actually go out and do training sessions. I usually do a southwestern one and then an eastern one, actually go out, put a whole bunch of people in awesome-looking Tyvek suits. When the dad pulls up in his minivan and we're all in Tyveks and gloves, he kind of goes, should I be here? And then he turns around. But pretty much we go out, we actually go to in areas that are, highly endemic, high-risk areas where we have lots of ticks, so they can actually go into the environment and actually see what it looks like, know where they should be dragging, and then showing them in the visuals of actually what the ticks look like. And I should note too, on the right here, we actually do have an active tick dragging SOP, so it's, what materials should you bring with you, what should you do, so that everybody is doing it the exact same way. Even on our website, we have a little video where I actually go out and show you how to tick drag and what you should do. It really shows you why I'm in science and not in media, but it gives you an idea of what you should be doing. Other thing we do, there'll be a quiz on this later, but standard questionnaire, again, given to the health units so that they're all asking everybody somewhat the same questions, so we can standardize, again, where the cases are occurring and what's happening. And we do have some canned exposure, so those same areas where it's always coming up, we can have that captured in our information. We have some other things, we've done some lit reviews, trying to think, again, when we do that stuff, when we do tick dragging or we do human surveillance, are we doing the best things possible? So, we did surveillance, systematic review. What are the different methods for tick dragging or tick surveillance in the field? Is that the best way to do it? And, going through the ledger, based on for our provincial programs, tick dragging is a very effective method, and that's what we've been showing by doing that. Same thing too, human surveillance, what are the different aspects? What can we do? We are governed by IFAS and are in reportable diseases, but it is a good way for capturing human information. There's some other aspects that we can use to maybe accentuate that. Our partners, we don't do this alone. We have a lot of people that are really good and really big help. So Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, they're really good for the public education, program and policy. OMAFRA, they have a lot of the animal stuff. They are dealing with the vets and that are big helpful for what's happening within those. M&R, they look after all the provincial parks, so they're really good at, giving us information of what's happening within those parks, but also letting us go into the parks for our surveillance. The MOE, climate change, good, the climate models, where's the temperatures, where are things going. The Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative and associated with the Ontario Vet College, again, that association, that link to the vets and things, what's happening in those. Big thanks to the public health units. They're the ones that do a lot of this hard work, and also to the Public Health Agency of Canada, because they're the ones that help us with the testing and give us a provincial view. And then webpage. You can't really read it, but we do have a webpage. So if you go to publichealthontario.ca, we do have a webpage with all our different resources. So depending on what you're looking for, if you need to do laboratory testing, we have our Labstract, we have our requisition. If you want to submit a tick, we have our forms there. Those publications, some of them I talked about, there's actually research links. We have our annual reports. So we have an annual vector-borne disease report where we post our numbers, where things are occurring, and some of our different research, such as that case management tool or how to do the proper tick dragging. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. I can suggest a very good chiropractor to get you straightened out after being in limbo for the last 15 minutes.